probably going to be playing a lot of RMD today, and you know, they have a lot of compositions to deal with that. I actually did get to talk to these guys rather in an interview as well, and I actually interviewed the coach of Cloud9, or the manager to say of Cloud9, Cartoons, and let's take a quick look at what they had to say.
Hey guys, my name is Cartoons, and I'm the team manager for Cloud9.
Hey, my name is Roasties, and I play Rogue for Cloud9.
My team has been so successful this far because they're very driven to win. They like to take new challenges week by week and game by game in order to really develop themselves as players and as a team.
We just played a lot before regionals and after regionals even, so we just had like thousands of games together. So the synergy is really there with like the Mage Druid.
Going into the GCD Pro League final, we really have faced a lot of challenges, including losing Gorecki to Tempo Storm, and I feel like even though we're motivated to win, it's definitely going to be challenging for us to pull off a win in this tournament, and I feel like we definitely are the underdogs now.
Realistically, we only have one comp for this tournament since Gorecki joined Tempo Storm, so we're going to be RMDing the whole tournament probably. And so there's obviously some things that counter RMD, but for the most part, if you play like RMD really well versus the counters, you can still win. So I think it all comes down to how we're playing that day. If we're like on point and stuff, I think we can probably win.
The team that we're most excited to face and will be the most challenging for us is definitely going to be Tempo Storm. You know, they came out really strong out of the gate with our ex-teammate Gorecki, and we're really looking forward to being able to fight them, even though that they have a lot of versatility in their comps. But I think that that's probably the most, high intensity game match for us because of just that rivalry between us. Gorecki leaving us in the middle of the tournament really did put a bad taste of salt in our mouth. I mean, we definitely are still friends with him on a personal level. Now that we're, at a point where we are only a three-man roster when most teams have four, and we've gone from being the top team to really being in this underdog status, I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out, and we would definitely like to see Tempo Storm knocked out by us. That's our main goal for the tournament. So we're facing Please Sponsor Us in the first round, and I feel like even though these guys are awesome guys, on a personal level, I definitely love hanging out with them. I feel like as a team, Cloud9 is definitely a better team than Please Sponsor Us, and we've been able to prove that in many tournaments so far.
We beat them last tournament 3-0 playing RMD, so I think I feel pretty good as long as we're playing right. I think we'll be able to beat them.
In the first round, we're really going to come out strong as we possibly can, and really try and prove for the fans that we can do something great.
All right. I actually did get a chance to talk to Rubcub as well from Please Sponsor Us. So take a quick look at what he had to say.
Hey, I'm Rubcub. I play Holy Paladin for our team. Please sponsor us. We all play really well together. We've been playing together a lot recently, and we all just work really well together, so it just kind of flows. We're pretty confident that we can do pretty well, but we're just very scared of like Lock Shaman and some other comps that we just don't have really any comps to counteract with. And it seems like a very a counter-based tournament, so like not having some of those comps is like just puts you at a really big disadvantage. All those teams are, the most like we're scared to face is Counter Storm, and any other Lock Shaman for that's like method you can go with. Any Lock Shaman in general is just like super hard for us to beat. Like every game you see us play against it, we have to play like perfectly to win, and if we don't, then we won't even win. But it's even if we do play perfectly, I think they still should win. So it's really hard. I wouldn't mind knocking out Counter Storm just because they just counter every comp we have, so it's it's kind of annoying. The fact that they just play counters in every comp, and they're too scared to mirror us, so it's whatever. Yeah, like the player I respect the most out of every team is Gorecki, because he can play every class at such a high level, and even though I'm talking about like Counter Storm and stuff like that, he's still like super good. So against Cloud9, I think that we should do pretty well against them, just if they have RMD only, because God Comp's pretty good against RMD. It's still a hard matchup because it can go either way, but we should have a very good chance if we play well.
All right. I love that guy. And here we go, guys. We're going to be jumping into the games very shortly. I know you love it when I say that. Very shortly. But, of course, it is Cloud9 versus Please Sponsor Us. You know, Cloud9 sounded pretty confident, even though they only have that RMD available to them. They said that they beat them in the past, and they're just going to be able to do it again. So we're going to be getting into this series. Cloud9 versus Please Sponsor Us, and you know, my predictions for the compositions from both these teams are probably going to be Rogue Mage Druid versus Holy Pally God Comp, which is a Holy Pally Shadow Priest Frost Mage from Please Sponsor Us. And as soon as these guys are ready, we're going to jump right into it. And I am sorry that you guys could not hear me say all that, but yeah, we're going to jump into the series here shortly between Cloud9 and Please Sponsor Us. And what are your predictions on how this series will go? I mean, Cloud9, even though they don't have that fourth player, they still seem really confident.
I mean, they had this exact roster and did incredibly well in the road to BlizzCon last year. They're kind of like cursed to only ever have 3 players on their team. Because they had 4 in the qualifiers last year, but they lost. I think they had a Paladin that they lost. And they weren't able to bring along with them. So they were just kind of like, well, I guess we're going to go through the rest of the tournament with only 3 players. And like at regionals, we were talking about, oh, C9, you know, they're kind of the underdog here because they only have 3 players. And then they just beat like everyone. So I think any other team in this situation, I would be like, oh man, disadvantages. Oh, they're not good. They got all their work cut out for them. But Roasties, Wealthy, and Cubsy, they're just so ridiculously good at RMD, which is a pretty strong comp itself. That I always have a hard time saying that. Oh yeah, Cloud9, they're gonna have to watch out for this. They're gonna have to watch out for that because they just do so well.
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with the synergy there. I mean, they do put in the games. They do have, you know, that synergy and that cross scene. They get real creative with those like offensive clones coming out for Cubsy. I love to see that guy play. But here we go. The Q has popped. How do you feel this series is going to go, Supa? Do you have are you going to put any money on either one of these teams? If you had to, who would it be looking at these 2 compositions coming out?
You know, this matchup isn't as one-sided as it was in the past. It could be a bit of a toss-up. Honestly, it's going to go down to who plays better. It's not a matter of like egos here. I think both these teams have enough practice that if one team is playing better, landing their setups more often, is going to end up taking this. So it could go either way. I'm going to give it to Please Sponsor Us. I'll give it to them as the underdogs here, as they did go down to Cloud9 in the previous tournament 3-0.
All right. So yeah, they are playing the sub RMD specifically here against Please Sponsor Us. So Roasties is going to stick to sub. And Merkmines, of course, on the Shadow Priest, Sam I Am on the Frost Mage, and Rubcub on the Holy Paladin. Yeah, you know, this matchup is definitely going to be a close one. Something changed, you know, within the gear and how the game has evolved, and this matchup is going to be a super exciting one because it's just so close. Here we go. Looks like Cloud9's looking to get the opener against Please Sponsor Us, trying to get a good opener here as Roasties moves in. Gets a sap on the Merkmine's Deep Freeze onto Rubcub, but do they have the follow-up CC? Cubsy's actually going to get interrupted on the Cyclone, and Rubcub's going to leave the CC in the opening.
Yeah, now we can see a setup over onto Wealthy Man. He's forced to blink away, positioned very smartly, but they're just going to swap onto Roasties, just turning the turret of damage over to him, already down to 40%. Forced to Cloak of Shadows very early on in this game. That's going to open up Roasties for a swap later on. Let's see if Please Sponsors can capitalize on that. Already a lot of damage over onto Wealthy Man. Cubsy looking like he's struggling to deal with the pressure, forced to use his Iron Bark to reduce damage on Wealthy Man. He will recover. Kidney Shot over onto Rubcub. Shadow Dance coming out. Can Roasties capitalize anything with this? Merkmine's going to trinket out right away and silence that polymorph. Please Sponsors are doing a great job to break up the sheeps out from Wealthy Man here, and now counter pressuring him, forcing him to block, and Please Sponsors are looking great. They mass dispel Wealthy Man out of his ice block. He's exposed to a lot of damage. Cubsy trying to pick him up. Merkmines follows it up with a triple fear. So much damage could follow this up. Wealthy Man desperately trying to line a sight here. Roasty Shadow Dance, or Shadow stepping back defensively. Silence over onto Cubsy. Still a lot of pressure onto Wealthy Man, almost into that Shadow or Death range. Forced to Blazing Speed away. Double Garrote silences, and Roasty is actually forced to vanish defensively, so he's not going to have that for an attack moving forward.
Yeah, Wealthy's still on hypothermia. It's just now about to fall off. So that was really, really scary there for a moment, even though he does have that second block still available. Now Cloud9 pulling back behind this pillar, just trying to get an opportunity to catch their breath for just a second. But the triple fear comes out. This could be very bad news. They do have the deep freeze follow-up onto Cubsy, and they're just going to go ahead and put him into that Ring of Frost as well. He's going to trinket out of that and immediately drop the Iron Bark onto Wealthy Man. Now they're trying to turn it back around over onto Please Sponsor Us. They do have Sam I Am into that full Cyclone. They had Rub Cubs. They're going to swap the Cyclone over onto him, now trying to go over onto Merc, but he's just going to get that bop right away. And Please Sponsor Us just looking so strong right now. They're just not Cloud9 is not able to put them into any sort of dangerous situations at all. Cubsy now caught into that full fear once again. Do they have the follow-up CC for him? No, they're just going to go ahead and let him continue to run back over to his team and get some heals off. But with just one ice block remaining for Wealthy Man, things are not looking good for Cloud9 right now.
Yeah, Cloud9 have no trinkets to break out of crowd control. Roasties could be an exposed swap. Even Cubsy could potentially get swapped if he's caught off guard. They go for the deep freeze. They're looking for that Ring of Frost. They connect it. Roasty's in a lot of trouble. He's going to cloak the shadows right before the Fist of Justice. Rubcub did not follow it up in time, and now he's eating a full polymorph. Smoke Bomb gets dropped by Roasties over on a Merc Mines. They're looking to force him to disperse. Down at 27%, cutting right through that Saved by the Light. He goes for the defensive fear, and man, ballsy Merc Mines holding on to that disperse. Rubcub's going to use the Avenging Wrath. They do get ahead excessively right now, forcing a block out from Wealthy Man. Mass dispelling him out of the ice block once again. Cubsy forced to top him off with that Nature Swiftness. Roasty still could be a viable swap target. They're priming him up. He's already low, down at 79. Can they finish him off in this stun? Denounces are flying through. Rubcub even wants to finish him off. They follow it up with the Horrify with no feint to reduce the damage. There should be no way he survives. Down at 20%, Cubsy barely gets that Iron Bark onto him in time to save him, and Roasty survives that setup that should have been lethal.
Yeah, Cloud9 running on fumes right now, but still alive somehow in this. Oh, the Wealthy Man dipping super low. He has no ice blocks available still. He's trying to get over to his healer, getting out of line of sight. He's going to blink away over here, and actually, he's going to go ahead and use his Icy Veins. He wants to try and turn this around and get on the offensive here, but Rubcub's using that Divine Shield as well as the the bubble onto Sam I Am. They're just going ham right now. Please sponsor us. No, they smell blood in the water, and there it is. Wealthy Man just takes so much damage, and it's just too much for Cloud9 to be able to deal with.
Cloud9 did a great job, rotating through their defensive cooldowns and surviving as long as possible, but like the preemptive bops and a death from above dance, there's just so many stops that Please Sponsor Us, as well as the massive spells, just like preventing Cubsy from really keeping his team up and ready to go. And I wonder if Wealthy Man is actually running that regen block glyph to help Cubsy out, especially going up against someone who's going to be massive spelling so consistently like that. It might be useful, but man, Please Sponsor Us. This Shadow Priest, Frost Mage, Holy Paladin looks super strong for Cloud9 to take out here, but they do now have the comp advantage as well as map advantage going into game number 2, but how much is that really going to give them? As
Sam I Am actually caught Cubsy in just with a random sheep at the end. That's ended up actually costing the game. They were able to chain a deep freeze onto his trinket towards the end. So I've played against Sam I Am a lot on the ladder, and he's one of the few mages that actually looks for those random sheeps a lot on druids, and it ended up winning him the game at the end there. So I can tell that Please Sponsors have been practicing a lot. That game looked really clean. They looked really powerful throughout the entire match, and Cloud9 really couldn't find any opportunities except maybe that one time in the smoke bomb, but they didn't even get dispersion out from Merc Mines. So Cloud9 needs to clean up some of their game here moving into the second match if they want to take this series. It's looking like Please Sponsor Us might just be able to walk all over them.
Yeah, I mean, there was a really close call there when Cubsy did get landed into that polymorph for free. The Icy Veins were popped, so Wealthy Man was casting faster, and he still wasn't able to, stop the casting polymorph with his own faster casting polymorph. But it's a battle of the cross CC into the setups, and when you don't have that momentum, that cross CC momentum to get offensive, and you're just like spamming your CC defensively, I feel like that the momentum just goes in the other team's favor. But we'll see here. We're going to be jumping into game 2 of this best of 5 series, and now Cloud9 do have that map advantage. They're probably not going to be utilizing their comp advantage. They're probably going to be sticking to RMD, but do you think that bringing RMD to a specific map might get even more of an advantage against a God comp, or do you think it's just going to be the same thing we saw in the Grand Arena no matter where we go?
I don't know if map could mean too much. I mean, a smaller map is going to allow Merc Mines to access triple fears a little bit more easy. So I'd imagine they want to play it safe, maybe go with Tiger's Peak, something that's just average sized. Blades Edge Arena, I don't think is going to get picked by either team. It could be a pretty risky map with positioning, so I would imagine Tiger's Peak. And I think that's what they did.
Yeah, you called it, man.
Yeah.
There it is. Tiger's Peak is going to be the map choice. I'll see you guys in a hot minute. All right. It's RMD versus Holy Pally GodCon for Please Sponsor Us once again here in game number 2 on Tiger's Peak. And, you know, Cloud9 probably just feeling a little bit rusty, feeling a little bit jittery. Maybe they haven't got the warm-up games in today, but we know these guys are capable of some crazy games. And Please Sponsor Us has got to be in anticipation of that. They can't be getting cocky now. They got a few more games to go before they move on past Cloud9. But here we go. The gates have opened.
And Wealthy Man, like you were saying, he's actually swapped out the Glyph of Regenerative Ice for the Glyph of Ice Block, which will basically just give a free Frost Nova once the Ice Block cancels. So yeah, expecting those Mass Dispels. Now the sap comes out onto Merc Mines, but they're not quite ready to really open on him yet. There we go. Now the Chief Shot onto Merc Mines, putting some damage into him. The Deep Freeze comes out onto Rub Cubs, and they're actually getting quite a lot of damage into Merc Mines right here. There was a short Chief Shot onto Rub Cubs as well. He's going to go ahead and use his Avenging Wrath as well as the Execution Sentence to top Merc Mines off. But that was actually a pretty promising bunch of bursts out of Cloud9 there.
Yeah, Wealthy Man actually had to block in response, though. Rubcub was able to get out of CC and land a Fist of Justice on Roasties to pause the offensive, and Cloud9 actually fall behind. Swap over onto Sam I Am. He's going to get locked out on that defensive sheep. He's just jumping in place right now, not even trying to cut. I think Roasties DC'd, but Wealthy Man just doesn't care. I think he did.
I guess
wondering
so.
if Please Sponsor Us are going to wait. Sam I Am's kind of cheeky. He's like, why did Wealthy Man just keep hitting me while his partner DC'd? He's back like, yo, hello?
He's like, I'm just trying to be nice, bro. And it looks like we got ourselves a gentleman agreement here, possibly. But look, Roasties is now jumping around. Maybe he is back and in it to win it. Looks like in the game it will continue.
Yes, Roasty's coming out here, but he does go into that Fist of Justice, triple CCL from Please Sponsor Us. The Sheep connects. Wealthy Man in a lot of trouble, forced to use that final Ice Block. He's going to cancel it early, trying to make something happen here. He's going to interrupt that follow-up Sheep, but Cubsy goes into the field. Trinkets just a little bit too late. Didn't have enough time to get that NS regrowth off, and Wealthy Man will fall in game number 2. A bit of an unfortunate disconnect for Roasties there, but still, it's just not looking like it's in Cloud9's favor here today. Like Wealthy Man tried to interrupt the follow-up Sheep on Cubsy, but Merc Mines was just ahead of him, just ready in position on top of Cubsy to fear him right out of it in case Sam I Am got stopped. So the synergy of Please Sponsor Us is there today, man. They're on fire.
That would be my guess. Or, I mean, they could do something crazy like Ruins as well. But I kind of feel like between these, it really is just kind of that triple
muted,
fear.
boys. Sorry.
Oh.
My mic was
Sorry.
muted. It's not your mic.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I think probably Tolvaron, they could go for something like Ruins, but I'm not really sure that would. Between these two compositions, the map doesn't make a huge difference unless you do get into those tight spaces for the triple fears a little bit more often. I guess there's probably something to be said about a smaller map letting Roasties get onto his target a little bit easier as well, just less distance to kite in. But other than that, I kind of don't feel like the map makes a huge difference here unless they do go for something like sewers. So I'm curious to see which one they pick, but I feel like at this point it's more just personal taste. Like, which map do you feel more comfortable on if you're Cloud9 in this situation?
Yeah, thinking more about Tolvaron Arena in Cloud9 situation, Roasties does of course have like those gap closers like Shadow Step and stuff like that, but it could be an issue on a big map for a melee regardless. And whoa, all right, we're gonna go to Ruins of Lordaeron. What do you guys think about that choice?
I like it. I think it's interesting. I think it's a better option than sewers for sure, and it does allow them to try and get a little bit more aggressive because it gives Please Sponsor Us a little bit less opportunity to go and duck behind the massive pillars that Tolvaron has and heal themselves up. So I like it. I think there's a strategy here that they can go for, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see if they can pull it off.
Yeah, and having spammable CC on Cubsy and Wealthy Man means that there's not very many places for Please Sponsor Us to line of sight of it. So maybe they can catch Rub Cubs and kind of just maybe a random clone from Cubsy even outside of their setups, and they can find opportunities with that. But Please Sponsor Us are shutting down Wealthy Man so hard. He's having a tough time getting the CC that he needs to get out. They're really focusing on stopping him, and it's really getting them ahead. Rub Cub's able to get out of a lot of CC, and they're able to counterattack very quickly. So let's see if Cloud9 can support Wealthy Men here in their final attempt. Will Ruins of Lordaeron be their final resting place as well? A lot of teams have been falling here on this map today. We see Merkmine's Mind Searing. He's really, I think, the MVP for Please Sponsor Us. He seems to be ahead of everybody in the match in terms of what's going on, what he needs to prevent, what CC needs to follow it up, and he's always there. So Merkmine's definitely being an MVP here. I'm trying to blizzard them out of stealth. They do manage to find Wealthy Men, which means that Roasties will be unable to get a sap. They're going to have to try and improvise here. Can Cloud9 pull it out here? Roasty's still playing patiently. Wealthy Man does have full icicles, so he's got a lot of damage potentially. Growth Silence on Samayam. He's going to get bopped out of it immediately. Samayam should be able to support and stop Wealthy Man. He shuts down Wealthy Man again. Wealthy Man's going to follow up with a Frost Drop, forcing Rub Cub to Ore Mastery. Fist of Justice, triple cross CC out from Please Sponsor Us, trying to pressure Wealthy Man. He's forced to block, already down at 40%. They're going to swap the pressure onto Roasties in that Horrify, already down to half, already down to 30, forced to Cloak of Shadows, forcing Cloak and Block. Please Sponsor Us once again, just walking all over Cloud9.
Yeah, this is not looking very good for Cloud9 at all right now. I think missing that opener has really put them off kilter for this whole matchup. Now Cubsy does manage to get his team top back off again, but it's looking so dangerous. Rossi's going to go ahead and use that Shadow Dance, but immediately the Dispersion comes out from Merkmines. He's going to have no issue with that whatsoever. It does mean he no longer has the Dispersion, but with the amount of cooldowns available for Rub Cubs right now, I don't think he's worried about that too much. Wealthy Man getting that Iron Block out of Cubsy just in time for that Deep Freeze to come out, which is a nice game awareness from Cubsy there to be able to get it out in time. But now caught into that silence, Wealthy Man still taking so much damage. This could be his second block here. No, he does manage to get a nice big heal there from Cubsy with that Nature Swiftness, which is going to be able to keep him alive and on the offensive for just a little bit longer. But looking at Roasties, he's just been shut down for so long, not able to get anything done really. Finally manages to connect onto Merkmines just long enough to force out the Blessing of Protection. But now with Rub Cubs getting caught into that into the Frost Jaw there for just a second. Did look a little bit scary there for Merkmines, but it looks like he's going to be able to get top back off again. And once again, the pressure is on Cloud9 to be able to make something to happen here.
Yeah, Wealthy Man line of sighted really well there. Both of his partners are crowd control. He avoided a lot of damage. Now on the offense, Rub Cub forced a bubble as Merkmines did disperse earlier. Will the bubble even be enough? Rub Cub just spam healing him. Roasty's doing so much damage, down at 40%. Now Rub Cub's caught into the cheap shot. Merkmines still in trouble, trying to kite away, looking for a Mass Dispel, maybe preemptively. He missed him. He Mass Dispelled himself. I'm curious why. Maybe he Mass Dispelled his Fairy Fire to get the Spectral Guy's stealth off to land the full fear onto Cubsy. Now pressure onto Wealthy Man. He still has one more block remaining. He's got to be careful. He needs to use it. Down at 20% and now running out of time. Interesting strategy from Merkmines, removing his own Fairy Fire and sneak attacking Cubsy for that fear.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and it seems to have worked out well for them in getting that Ice Block back out. But now Roasties has gotten the Re-Stealth, as well as Cubsy there for just a second. He's going to go ahead and pop back out to be able to get some healing off. But both teams are now just kind of backing off for just a second. And there are a lot of defensive cooldowns available for Cloud9 once again here, and nothing really available for Merkmines. He is going to have his Dispersion back up again in about 5 seconds, but there really isn't much for Rub Cubs to be able to deal with this damage if he's getting caught into the CC chain. There's the Frostjaw onto him. Can they continue to keep the this CC going. Not just yet. There's actually a kidney shot going on to Samayam. He's just going to go ahead and block out of that right away to try to stay on the offensive as they're turning it back around onto Wealthy Man at the moment. He does get the Iron Bark out from Cubsy, and Cubsy doing a great job of staying in bear form just to make sure he doesn't get caught by any of those random polymorphs that Samayam, as you mentioned earlier, likes to throw out from time to time. But now Cubsy caught into the deep freeze. Are they going to get the Ring of Frost on him? No, they do not. But they do follow it up with a Science. Wealthy Man in a huge amount of trouble right here, dipping down super low. The Nature Swiftness comes out, and that's going to heal him back up. But that was extremely dangerous as he does not have an Ice Block available. He'll have his Cold Snap back up again in just a couple of seconds, and he should be able to use that right away. But they seem to have almost now missed their opportunity to turn something back around on a Please Sponsor Us, because Rub Cubs has his Trinket available once again, as well as that Dispersion.
Merkmines is going crazy. He life grip Rubcub out of line of sight on the deep freeze so he wouldn't get sheeped. Now Rubcub easily sits through the full blind, but Samayam used his block to get CC. He might get punished for that. Rubcub forced to pop his Avenging Wrath. He will top him off for now. The smoke bomb gets dropped. Roasty's still trying to capitalize on this, but Samayam escapes the bomb with that blazing speed. They're actually maybe making a swap on Cubsy. They used the Horrify over onto him. They just wanted to follow up some CC. They forced the Iron Bark out from him regardless. Samayam getting locked out on both schools. He's very vulnerable at the moment. No Blessing of Protection. No Ice Blocks remaining. They could easily take him down with this next Shadow Dance in 27 seconds. Cubsy trying to preemptively shift deep, but Merkmines is moving in stealth. Cubsy displaces away from the fear. Well done. Cubsy avoids getting feared. Now Merkmines caught into the kidney shot. Roasty's trying to peel for him. Rubcub's caught into that frost jaw, forced to Aura Mastery to break out of it. He should be able to free cast here. Deep freeze out from Samayam onto Cubsy. They land the Ring of Frost and force the final block. Merkmines goes for the MD. Roasty shuts him down with a gouge, and that means Wealthy Man will be able to sit through the block a little bit longer, but Merkmines follows up with the fear, and now Wealthy Man is going to be going into the grave. Merkmines finishing him off, and Please Sponsor Us looking stylish in this series against Cloud9.
That is indeed a 3-0 victory for Please Sponsor Us, and these guys are coming right out of the gate so strong. Some of the plays that these guys are pulling off was incredible. You know, Samayam's like over aggression with those ice blocks, though, I thought was going to be his shallow grave, but it turned out they still had plenty of tools to be able to survive through that, and there you have it. Cloud9 will fall to the Shadow Priest, Frostmage, Holy Paladin composition of Please Sponsor Us as Please Sponsor Us moves forward into the bracket.
Yeah,
okay.
I was expecting it to be one-sided like that, but
Yeah, I'm still like when we first started talking about this, we were like, oh yeah, Cloud9, yeah, they're not only are they playing RMD, but they're also really good at RMD. And Please Sponsor Us was like, that doesn't even matter. We're just going to take them apart bit by bit and just rip them to shreds, as we saw in the last 3 matches. Essentially how each one of them went was Cloud9 tries to get an opener, sometimes successful, sometimes not, and then everybody kind of runs around for a little while and does various World of Warcraft stuff, and then eventually Please Sponsor Us, it just kind of goes and that
I like those sound effects.
These are
very accurate.
This is CC, and then this is killing somebody.